come to the realization that not everyone's going to love me. Not everyone's going to think I'm great. I'm constantly being compared to other women, either in the network or not even in our network. And it's like, you know what? Are we allowed to curse on this show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Yeah. No. Honestly, I'm like, fuck it. People can call me whatever they want. I'm here to do what I love to do, and I'm here to be honest with people. And if they can't appreciate the honesty and they're going to judge me based on my personality or characteristics that are completely irrelevant, I'm not going to spend my time trying to cater to those people. So I don't care about it. And, you know, I've been with TYT for 6 years, and there have been a number of things that have come up that aren't even related to the news that I have to think about. Am I dressed too sexy? Do I dress more conservatively? Do I use my sex appeal to get ahead? Should I shy away from stories that are related about sex because people are going to question my credibility and they're going to think that I'm a cliche? So there are so many little things, and I've kind of come to the point where I'm like, I don't care about any of that. I'm going to do what I find interesting. I'm going to be honest to myself, and that's all that'll matter at the end.
Confirm pre-service history.
Hi, I'm Alison Hope Weiner, and welcome to Media Mayhem. Thanks so much for joining us. I think you will notice that we have a new desk and a new set on Media Mayhem, which is like completely fabulous. And I'm so excited because Anna Kasparian is here to join us and enjoy our new desk.
Yes, I love it. It's a very nice desk, I have to say.
You're inaugurating something new here.
I know.
We're going a little Young Turk, so it's like perfect that you should join us today. I want to thank everybody for all the comments that have been coming in. Really appreciate it. We're looking at them and responding to them, not just me, but other guys here at the Lip, including producer Nick. And I appreciate you guys writing in. But now let's get to our show. You can enjoy our fabulous set while we get through and have a little chat with Anna. Anna Kasparian is the co-host and co-producer of The Young Turks, which is the flagship show of the largest online news network show in the world, TNT, TYT. She's also co-producer and host of The Point, which I have been on, which is a fabulous show and allows for like some great discussions with the crazy mix of 3 different guests.
Yeah.
Where you sort of show up and go, who are these people and why are we all here together? I don't know if Steve O and you both put together like this crazy lineup.
I definitely have a say in who we invite on the show, but I didn't come up with the concept. The concept was originally Cenk's idea, and we might actually change the format a little bit and have like regular panelists and maybe 1 rotating panelist. But it is kind of interesting to meet someone new or 3 new people every week, and they have something unique to contribute. I love it.
So what was the, when you pick those topics out, are they always something that has to like be very, very current for that particular day? Because I know the way it works is that somebody, for those of you who haven't seen it, is that they have a video clip of somebody talking about an issue, and then everybody opines about it, and sometimes in like a really humorous way, but usually in a pretty intellectual way as well, hopefully, with some insight. I guess not, Anyway, so how do you come up with the topics that you're going to use on those segments?
Well, lately what we've done is we shifted the format from 3 different topics to a themed show. So, for instance, we filmed yesterday, and the topic was the internet, and we talked about the internet's impact on the brain as our first segment, and the second segment was about online reviews, whether or not you can consider them reliable, and then the last segment was about pornography online and how, like, basically anything you do that might be even a little salacious will be online and it'll exist there forever, and what are the ramifications of that. So, we try to have theme shows, but we might actually switch up the format for the 3rd time very, very soon. I think we want to be more diverse in the topics. We want to do more content and have more for our audience. So we might actually do like 8 different topics in one show.
Do you think that's going to be a little short though? Or are you going to just, in terms of the segments, or are you trying to make them shorter?
We're trying to make the segments shorter. It really depends on, how the audience views content on YouTube, and it's, strictly a YouTube show. And a lot of people, especially the young demographic on YouTube, isn't really into sitting down and watching a 45-minute clip, which is what we were originally doing. So we're trying to find ways to make the show more dynamic. We're trying to cater to a YouTube audience, and the best way to do that is to offer great information in an entertaining, shorter clip.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how did you get involved with the Turks? Just I'll do sort of a general housekeeping kind of question before we get started, so everybody sort of knows your background.
Sure. Well, I was looking for a way to really piss off the Armenian community, so I went for a show called The Young Turks. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I was working at CBS Radio. I was fresh out of college, and I always wanted to be in journalism. I wanted to be in the media, and my short period of time at CBS Radio made me realize I hate mainstream media. Like, I couldn't handle it. And the reason why I say that is because there was this obsession with paying your dues. And even though I was young and fresh out of college, I knew that I had a lot more to offer than to sit in a corner and do associate production. And what that really meant was printing out papers and getting coffee for the editor. And I was like, no, this is a waste of time. I don't want to work my way up the ladder. I think that I can do better than that. So this startup company shows up. One of my coworkers at CBS told me about the Young Turks and how they needed a temp. And I was like, sure, I'll do some temp work for them. Who knows, it might be good. Of course, I did like a thorough investigation into the name of the show because I'm like, what the hell does Young Turk mean? And, you know, I was a little offended like most Armenians would be. But then when I
love that you're Armenian.
Yeah, and then I find out, you know, Turk means rebel, someone who rebels against societal expectations, and I like that.
Although he does happen to be Turkish.
Yeah, he's Turkish, I know, but that wasn't the reason why he named the show The Young Turks. I mean, the topic matter never has anything to do with Turks or Armenians or anything like that. So
that's probably a good place for you guys to stay away as well.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, although we actually don't disagree on topics related to the genocide, but anyway, that's a whole different conversation. So I go in and on my very first day, I'm producing, and I'm just doing it like very casually, thinking this is a temp thing, I'm just doing it for the money, and I'm curious to see what this is all about. Cenk goes on air, he does his thing, and I was blown away. On the very first day I was there, he put me on air to like introduce myself. Oh, new girl, who's this? And I was like, wait a minute, you're breaking all the rules. I haven't paid my dues yet, right? And when my temp period was up, I basically sent him an email and said, I want to work here. I know you don't have like any positions available, but I'll do anything. Like I'll do part-time, whatever you need. So for a while I did part-time at the Young Turks and CBS, and then finally he put me on air to do like one story a day, and it was an entertainment story, and we would put the clip up on YouTube and it would blow up. So then he said, you know what, I want to hire you full-time, and then that one story went into a 15-minute segment, and then all of a sudden that evolved into my own hour. So that's how I got involved in TYT.
So what else did you hate mainstream media because of the structure of how you get ahead in mainstream media, or because of the content?
Well, I can only speak to what I experienced at CBS, but
well, you must watch mainstream media.
I do watch mainstream media, and I have a lot of criticisms about it, but, you know, while I was at CBS, it kind of, you know, it really hit me that what I had learned in school was so different from what the reality was, because I thought, oh my god, this is journalism, but it wasn't journalism. Basically what you do is you have like a team of writers, and they write a script for the anchors that get paid like the actual money, right? And all the anchors do is sit there and literally read the news. There's like no thought that goes into it. You know, the writers have to be objective, so they'll do the, okay, so reality is, and we all have our biases, and we're upfront about our biases. But we also say, look, even though we're progressives, even though we consider ourselves Democrats, we're still going to hold the Democrats accountable if they do something wrong.
Do you think that the Turks is a news show, or is it more like a commentary show?
It's more a commentary show. So sometimes people will be like, Anna's a shitty journalist. And I'm like, yeah, I am a shitty journalist because I'm not a journalist, right? I'm a news commentator. I analyze the news. A real journalist goes out on the field, gathers facts, and does the reporting. What we basically do is find reliable sources, take their reporting, make sure that we fact check and make sure that the information that we're providing the audience is absolutely true, and then we analyze it for them.
Okay, so what are your main sources? I know that you always talk about that, and Cenk talks about it as well, as sources that you're pulling from when you show, you'll show your clips, and sometimes it's just YouTube, but sometimes it's a mainstream source about a story that's being reported. I mean, how do you decide what you're going to run? Because to me, this is the major thing that's lacking in the news today, is somebody actually checking to be sure it's true before they report it. And not just putting the word alleged in front of something, because that still leaves the impression that what you're reporting is true.
Right. Well, it depends on what type of topic you want to discuss. So if it has to do with foreign policy, I would go to someone like Glenn Greenwald. And the reason why I go to Glenn Greenwald is because he's absolutely honest. He doesn't hold back. He's not part of the establishment media, which means he doesn't have any corporate interests at hand. It doesn't mean that, it means that he's not in bed with any politicians. He reports the facts. And honestly, like, he is one of the most reliable and credible people that could possibly write about foreign policy. So I always go to him for that. David Sirota is another really great journalist, and I love his coverage of education-related stories. I think he does a good job really dissecting why politicians and corporations are pushing for the privatization of education here in the United States. And, you know, of course I go to the wires, but whenever I go to the wires, I do my best to find other sources that confirm the information in the wires, because oftentimes the AP will get it wrong. So, you know, if there are certain individuals named in the article, I'll do my best to email those people and make sure that the reporting was right. So I do make calls and emails and fact-checking, but I definitely don't go out on the field and gather the information.
But it's a big deal to actually check out to be sure those things are right, and I think that people need to have a healthy skepticism when you read something off the wire. I've heard so many people say, well, I read it.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's out there. Yeah,
I know. It's incredible. It's like I read one article about it and it says A, B, and C, so it must be true. No, and I just want to clarify one thing. No one in the media is perfect. There hasn't been a single person who never got who didn't make a mistake. So there have been cases where I made a mistake, but the great thing is, you know, it's a learning experience and you don't make that same mistake again. You learn to really check your sources so you don't misreport anything.
And I think also, at least when I was at the New York Times, that you have to own up to those mistakes and say why you made them.
Yes.
Besides actually getting better at what you're doing, and oftentimes people get very defensive if you talk to a reporter and you call them up, and I used to see this all the time. Instead, you just like bite the bullet and say, yeah, I made that mistake. I'm really sorry. I'll write a retraction. I'll write something about the mistake. It rarely happens, and I always urge all journalists to just come clean. Say that you did something wrong. You're human. You did something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of trying to cover it up.
I mean, oftentimes when someone does something wrong in the media, you know, there's no malice behind it, right? It's something that it could be incompetence. It could have been because they overlooked something. Everyone has an off day, and when you have an off day, you know, you have to own up to it and say, you know what, this is what really happened. I apologize. I know that this makes you question my credibility, but I'm here to correct it and tell you what the truth is. And I think that actually helps your credibility, not hurt it.
Okay, well, let's switch. I wanted to switch topics because there's something that has been in the news that's really interesting to me, and I wanted to get your take on it, especially because you're a young woman. Sort of I mean, you're already in a great position, but there's still like a whole world for you to move up into. At this point, there is a book out by the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, who wrote Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead, and it's about the obstacles faced by women in the workplace and empowering themselves, and basically it's about what they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Because everybody starts, there's so many women in the workplace, and basically there's a lot of problems with them moving up in the workplace, not getting into the workplace, which used to be the old issue, and sort of transitioned into this. And she's saying stuff, and frankly, when I talk about it on this show, is the most controversial stuff I talk about, because women beat up on other women so much when they're on the different side of this particular issue. But the first thing she said is that we are socializing our daughters to nurture and our boys to lead. And she was talking about while there are more girls in school and they're doing better than boys, they're still getting skills that are not useful in the workplace. And has that been your experience when you're working with women as opposed to working with men, that they tend to sort of back off, follow the rules, raise their hand, and not be aggressive enough?
Well, that's really an interesting question, because one thing that I definitely have experienced in the media is when there's a topic that I feel particularly passionate about, and let's say I raise my voice while I'm talking about it, people will immediately brush me off as someone who's being too emotional. Cenk, who is obviously the main host of the show, when he's passionate, when he's arguing about something and he's raising his voice and he's animated about it, he's not emotional, he's considered passionate, right? So it's really about society's perception of women, and a lot of times, I mean, we've been conditioned to believe that a socially acceptable woman sits back and she does what she's told, and she doesn't yell, she doesn't argue, she's not too opinionated, because if she is, then she's going to get the same kinds of criticisms that Hillary Clinton got. Remember, like, she was criticized left and right because she wasn't feminine enough for people. You know, her laugh was too shrill. Remember, that's how they described her. And that's the kind of thing that women have to be careful about. It's a delicate balance. So I've definitely experienced like that double standard when it comes to behavior.
Well, you know, when I think about Hillary Clinton, I mean, the turning point for me in terms of recognizing that how little things had changed was the positive response to her crying. So she shows, if you're a woman and you show that you're vulnerable and frankly, like kind of a loser, that people will like you more instead of standing up and being strong. I mean, and if you, and to me, that was kind of a turning point, I think, even in her candidacy. I mean, that she started, you know, it was just sort of such a, I'm not sure if it was real or not real, I can't really even go there, but my response to that was, gosh, don't cry and make everybody, just to make everybody happy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if it's a genuine moment of emotion, I don't have a problem with it, but I thought it was interesting how people perceive that moment and how that made her more likable. And it's a delicate balance, like I said. I mean, if you're too strong, if you're perceived as too aggressive, people don't like you. If you're soft-spoken, people don't like you. You have to find that equilibrium, and it's really, really difficult to figure that out.
I used to get, when I was reporting, I was too aggressive. And I'm like, really, is there such a thing as a New York Times reporter that's too aggressive? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing, but you have to find like a tricky way of being aggressive but not being perceived as aggressive. It's crazy.
Do you try to adapt that kind of a thing, or do you just do what you do? I mean, because
I do what I do.
Yeah.
You know what? I've come to the realization that not everyone's going to love me. Not everyone's going to think I'm great. I'm constantly being compared to other women, either in the network or not even in our network. And it's like, you know what? Are we allowed to curse on this show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fuck at it.
Yeah. No. Honestly, I'm like, fuck it. People can call me whatever they want. I'm here to do what I love to do, and I'm here to be honest with people. And if they can't appreciate the honesty and they're going to judge me based on my personality or characteristics that are completely irrelevant, I'm not going to spend my time trying to cater to those people. So I don't care about it. And you know, I've been with TYT for 6 years, and there have been a number of things that have come up that aren't even related to the news that I have to think about. Am I dressed too sexy? Do I dress more conservatively? Do I use my sex appeal to get ahead? Should I shy away from stories that are related about sex because people are going to question my credibility and they're going to think that I'm a cliche? So there are so many little things, and I've kind of come to the point where I'm like, I don't care about any of that. I'm going to do what I find interesting. I'm going to be honest to myself, and that's all that'll matter at the end.
I agree with it. I wanted to ask you one more question about this book, and it's funny because I also know even when women are on the show and you start to talk about these topics, they don't really want to acknowledge that this is who they are because they're trying to be in a place where they don't focus on that. And I'm curious, for me, I think it's something that it's not helpful to other people, to other women, if we don't focus on it and we try not to recognize that we are women in the workplace. And it's sort of another issue of, do you actually even bring it up? Because I've had other women say, don't think I'm going to help you because I'm a woman. And I'm like, don't worry. I would never expect that.
Wow, I haven't come across any of that. You know, the work environment that I'm in fortunately has women that do help one another, and it's a really good feeling. And I think at TYT we all help one another. It's like a family, and I think it's because we haven't really gone like corporate. You know what I mean?
I was in a corporate. I was a lawyer.
Yeah,
when I was a lawyer. Yeah.
In the corporate world, it's completely different. So I know that it can get cutthroat. I know how competitive it could be. But one of the best things that I've learned so far is when you see another woman at the workplace, don't think of her as a competitor. Think of her as a friend, because if you show her that you're willing to help her in her time of need, she'll turn around and do the same for you.
I think that's totally right. And I think a lot of women, and I've spoken about this before, think of other women that if there's another woman that succeeds like they're succeeding, there's not going to be a place for them, that there's only one spot. And
That's
men
so
don't think
true.
like that.
They don't. Men help each other out. And you know what? They're absolutely right in having that mentality. And I think that it's a mentality that women should take on as well.
Well, what we're talking about being on television and being kind of the problems that sort of come with a high-profile journalist job, and I know by your host, I mean, Jake used to say this too, I'm a host of the show, I'm a commentator. Yeah. So telling that to the audience, but having that kind of a job, I wanted to talk about Bob Woodward because he's recently come under some more criticism. In the past, he's also been criticized for sort of acting as a celebrity journalist and caring more about how he comes off than the content that he's writing about, and also catering to his sources, that he's become one with his sources. Now, this is the guy that wrote All the President's Men along with the Bernstein, but over the years there have been some questionable Woodward episodes. I'll sort of bring you up to speed. In '87, he did a 4-minute interview with CIA Director William Casey and Casey family, and the CIA criticized him for that interview. He stood by the story. In the Valerie Plame affair, Woodward derided a special prosecutor's investigation into the leaking of a CIA officer's name without telling the Post or his audience that he was one of the first people to receive that name, meaning he knew who was leaking. So he went along making criticisms and saying, oh, you shouldn't be investigating this, when he had been involved in writing and leaking, and in this leak. My feeling is that maybe at this point in his career, that Woodward has spent so much time in Washington socializing with the powerful people that he ceased to be an effective journalist. And I'm curious, I mean, I do think that that's true, and I know he still can write, but, you know, when you read his books, some of them, they really do seem tainted by some sort of self-interest, or the interest of the people that he's writing about. Certainly about the first book about the Bush administration made my blood boil. So I'm just curious what you think of him, and if you think that it's possible to gain that amount of notoriety that Woodward has and still be a credible journalist.
Well, I do think that certain personal relationships can corrupt a journalist's credibility, and in the case of Woodward, I mean, that's not far-fetched. I mean, the reason why he was in the news more recently was because of the fact that he said that the White House had threatened him after he had written an op-ed piece for the Washington Post saying that Obama had moved the goalpost when it comes to the whole budget talks. And the threat didn't even exist, right? Basically, there was an official in the White House who told him, maybe you shouldn't write this article, it's not a good idea. And he wasn't saying that as a threat, he was saying that because the op-ed was factually incorrect. But anyway, I think the reason why he perceived that as a threat is because he's not used to being yelled at or talked to by officials. He's used to working with them, having a friendly relationship with them. He's essentially part of the establishment. So that was probably a jarring email for him because he's not used to, you know, someone objecting to something he's doing. So I think that the point that you make about the establishment media is spot on. I mean, you have corporate interests, you have politicians, you know, all playing a role in the way the mainstream media covers certain things, and it's problematic because people in the U.S. don't have perfect information. They're not getting, you know, reliable sources, and it's unfortunate. And another thing is, there are a lot of Americans that are totally complacent and they're not critical thinkers, so they'll watch something like Fox News and think that the commentary on there is actual news, that it's fact, and that's a big problem.
Do you think that's a problem with you guys when they watch TYT? I mean, that they think that what you're reporting is fact and not just commentary? I mean, do you think that some of your audience, too, doesn't make that distinction?
Well, the audience definitely knows that we're commentators because we're so open about it. But I do want to clarify one thing. I mean, we do report fact. We're very, very careful about that. So a lot of people are confused about our show because sometimes we'll criticize the Democratic Party more than the Republican Party, and they'll be like, aren't you guys progressives? What's happening? Why are you making fun of the president for doing this? Why are you criticizing the president for doing this? Well, it's because the criticism is well-deserved. He did A, B, and C. We reported that to you. We have reliable sources indicating that he did do this, and we have to hold him accountable for it. So, you know, sometimes we'll have conservatives email in and say, like, oh, thank you for your coverage of the drone strikes that Obama's doing right now. And sometimes, you know, Democrats will email in and say, thank you for holding Republicans in Congress accountable.
I think it's interesting, and I do think that you actually do go back and forth, and I think progressives, we are kind of known for criticizing our own people.
Yeah, and we should. We should, absolutely.
I mean, that is sort of the tradition of the Democratic Party, that it was always kind of different kinds of viewpoints, and that we had trouble actually unifying and for one candidate to get a presidential candidate that won because there was so much dissension over so many different issues. And we are quick to criticize, and frankly, I don't see that kind of behavior on Fox News. I never see them criticizing anything conservative, and it could be the most ridiculous thing, and they still go with it because it's under the conservative banner.
I mean, Fox News has a Beckel representing Democrats, and I mean, that's an absolute disaster. Like, he recently referred to Asians as Orientals. Like, Beckel is not a good representation of Democrats. You know,
that the guy that called Joey Behar fat? I was watching. Like, he also, you guys were talking about that. That was great.
Yeah. It's a nightmare. So yeah, Fox News is not a reliable source. I think that you know, people who are up to date with current events know that. But like I said, there are some Americans that are working like 9-to-5 jobs. They have families to take care of, and they just don't have the time to do any critical thinking when it comes to news analysis. So they'll just kind of flip the channels, see Fox News, and think like, oh yeah, O'Reilly. You know, he doesn't have any biases. He's fine.
Let me ask you what you do in terms of verbiage, because to me, part of the mainstream media's biggest problem is that they're using words like insurgents or instead of, occupied forces, or, they don't actually discuss what was happening in Iraq or in Afghanistan in terms that actually portray what is actually happening. I mean, they use different sort of names to make it sound as if these guys are against us and they have no right to be against us, so they're insurgents in Iraq.
Right.
Instead of the fact that we were an occupying force and people were fighting against us, or they're terrorists or whatever the label is, and every part of the mainstream media adapts that label.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you guys are being commentators, if you try to play, if you're cognizant of the fact that these terms are incorrect and that you're not going to use the language that's been given to us to discuss a certain news event.
I actually never really put any thought behind it until now. I think that because of the style of the show, we don't really, we don't put on the suit and tie and try to sound smarter than we are. We have a very laid-back format, so we talk to people as if we're talking to family members, as if we're at a dinner table. So we don't try to, change the narrative of what's going on. But, in terms of how the corporate media frames things,
it makes a huge difference.
It does make a huge difference, and you have to keep in mind that the corporate media played a huge role in selling the war in Iraq back in 2003. And think about the Dixie Chicks. So they were outspoken against the war in Iraq, and all of a sudden you have the corporate media like railing against them. And the reason why I bring them up is because, the mainstream media is part of the military-industrial complex, okay? They have corporate sponsors. They have weapons manufacturers. They have individuals that fund their shows. And as a result, they will go ahead and, be part of that push for invading other countries. So they'll use the words like terrorists and insurgents and things that sound scary. They'll pretend as if our country is, in constant threat of some sort of terrorist attack. And as a result, there's a certain population of the American public that believe that, our actions abroad are totally justified. There was recently a poll that indicated that the vast majority of Americans believe that the drone strikes abroad are justified. And it's unbelievable. We're killing U.S. citizens abroad with no due process, and I wish that, new media was growing fast enough to actually make a difference right now. But, there are certain people that do rely on, new media, but it's still kind of a slow growing process.
But I do think that people need to pay attention to those terms because they give you a false sense of what's happening, just what you're saying. And I do think that the mainstream media, I totally agree with everything you said because they are part of that complex. And if you ever have any doubts, if the audience ever had any doubts, look at how they got embedded with the forces. That is not journalism. That's like come with us and report what we tell you to report about this war. That's an end run around the kind of coverage that you saw in Vietnam, where you actually saw what was happening. If you put somebody in a tank and they're under your protection and they're driving with you and they're getting to know everybody, they are only allowed to report certain things. So we did not get real coverage of that war from the mainstream media.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. And, one journalist that really comes to mind when it comes to war coverage is Michael Hastings. Michael Hastings is incredible because, he doesn't hold back and he actually reports the facts about what's happening in other countries. Michael Hastings is, in my opinion, on the same level as Glenn Greenwald. And he's written about the war in Iraq. He has done great coverage of Afghanistan. And that's the kind of reporting that I wish the American public really paid attention to. And, I think a lot of Americans are getting tired of being abroad because we're using so many of our resources to really make weapons manufacturers wealthy. Like no one's really benefiting from invading Iraq and Afghanistan.
I think we came to that conclusion a long time ago.
Yeah,
and I think that the leadership has been way behind in terms of the American public's disdain for that war, and the way they showed it was by stop paying attention to it completely.
Absolutely,
totally not interested.
Yeah, I mean, how often do you see CNN, MSNBC, Fox News talk about Afghanistan? I mean, right now there's this whole obsession with the economy in the United States, and there should be an obsession with the economy. But one thing that they never talk about is the fact that we're never going to solve our issues with the economy if we don't get money out of politics.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, they can't really talk about that. And that's something that you guys and the Turks really focus on.
Yeah.
I mean, and you actually have the Wolf Pack, where you're encouraging people to try to get the huge amount of money that's in politics out of politics.
Yes.
And I think that But I don't think that they understand, and maybe you want to take a second, what that means by getting money out of politics, what that actually means to us.
Right.
I mean, in terms of our representatives and in terms of who actually gets elected. I mean, maybe you want to take a second and sort of explain, like, this infusion of money and recent decisions by the Supreme Court, not so recent anymore, but citizens. I mean, if you want to go ahead and explain a little bit about what the Wolfpack is for.
So, Citizens United was a Supreme Court ruling that basically says that corporations can make unlimited amounts of campaign contributions to politicians and to political action committees. And of course, that kind of undermines the whole point of a democracy when you have corporations using their tremendous influence. And, you know, people like the two of us have no influence because we're just one voter, you know. So what Wolfpack really wants to do is, you know, put together like a constitutional convention that would overturn that Supreme Court ruling. And it would really solve a lot of our problems, because if you look at any type of policy that's crafted in the country right now, there are always corporate interests in the background playing a huge role. So as I mentioned earlier in the show, David Sirota recently wrote this great piece in Salon about you know, the privatization of education here in California. And you have corporations like Amazon and Microsoft basically funding a push for reform. And the reason why they're doing that is because if we have more charter schools, they don't necessarily have to abide by the same laws that public schools do. So Amazon and Microsoft can sell tablets and technology to these charter schools. They can sign these huge contracts with these charter schools. So these schools can basically spend the money on this technology as opposed to hiring teachers. So that's why charter schools have actually, they haven't solved the problem really with education in California. But that's just one small example. I mean, when it comes to financial reform, I mean, is it any surprise that we didn't really come up with any real financial reform? I mean,
no.
I mean,
I think people have to understand, if we can't put together enough money to control whoever is in office, I mean, then they were never going to vote for what is good for us.
Exactly.
And we can't, because you can't compete with this kind of corporate infusion. Even the billionaires that were putting money into the presidential race. I mean, the idea that we actually are making a difference in that is absurd, because it really was collect the most corporate money that you can to pay for this campaign, and you're the guy that wins.
Yep.
And in order to win, you have to be doing policies. I mean, if we look at Wall Street too. I mean, no action to punish anybody that brought us this disastrous economy. Nothing. And that totally is related to who are you going to appoint for Attorney General? I mean, who are you going to put in there? What is the president? The president's going to lead the way on that. And if he really took issue, if Obama had really done something and really taken care of Wall Street, he wouldn't be in office again.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's really unfortunate. I mean, and, you know,
so you should tell people how to contribute. I mean, if they want to get involved in the Wolfpack, tell my audience.
Well, we have a website that kind of explains everything in detail. So all you have to do is go to wolf-pack.com, wait, hold on. wolf-pack.com.
And go to the Young Turks website.
Yeah, you can also
You'll find your way there, because that's how you donate.
Exactly, tyt.com.
And it's a small amount, but if everybody together would be able to have some influence, because that's how it works. And you got to play by the rules that were set by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was mostly, you know, I mean, the majority is put in there by corporate interest too.
Right.
I mean, that's how they managed to hijack one of our elections, more than one probably. But anyway, so let's switch to something even more depressing: the election of a new pope.
Okay.
There is a new pope. I don't know if you guys have been talking about this on your show, because I'm very fascinated by the whole pope thing and watching all of those cardinals, a good portion of them who are already criminals, electing our new pope. And I say this, I mean, I'm not saying it lightly, and we've had a number of guests talk about this, but there is actual evidence that many of the cardinals, and we could speak directly about Cardinal Mahoney, who covered up sexual abuse, which is a crime, and covering it up is also a crime, and there he was electing our new the new pope, not my pope, but everybody else's pope. And he has replaced Pope Benedict, and I'm wondering if you think that there will be any, I mean, I know the answer to this is no, but the new pope actually has named himself after St. Francis of Assisi, and who lived and demanded justice for those who had been victimized and destroyed by the powerful. And I'm just curious, there already has been some scandal attached to the new pope, and a book in which they claim that the pope there were several in this book. One of the Jesuits that worked under the new Pope in Argentina had died, but before he died, he said that this Pope had allowed him and another Jesuit to be kidnapped because they were doing stuff that the Archbishop or Pope Francis did not agree with. So already they say the priests helped to get these priests kidnapped because they didn't intervene on their behalf because they weren't in line with the party line. So this is a guy who's steeped in traditional Catholic doctrine, who's been a big player in the Catholic Church for a lot of years and was actually a runner-up to Benedict. So I'm wondering, do you think that there can be any resolution of this issue without the Pope acknowledging what happened, saying that they're responsible, and starting to clean house? Somebody being punished again.
Yeah.
Somebody being punished.
No, I don't think that there would be resolution, but I think that that's actually irrelevant because people are willing to brush stuff like this under the rug in the name of religion and move forward. So maybe some people will discuss it in the media right now because of the fact that he was just named the new Pope, but I think 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 1 year from now, people won't even really care. I mean, it's kind of incredible that, you know, at the Vatican yesterday, there were so many people celebrating a new Pope being named, but you guys don't know that guy. You don't know anything about him. So everyone's like, yeah, new Pope. But it's like, you don't even know, you probably don't even know what his name is, you know? So it's so frustrating because there are good parts of religion. I'm not a religious person. I'm agnostic, and I'm actually leaning toward atheism.
Depending on how bad things are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I believe in any higher power or anything like that. So, but anyway, that's beside the point. I think that religion gives certain people hope, and especially in bad economic times, especially when we're going through, certain agony because of the way our politicians make decisions, because of the way certain dictators make decisions in other countries. People turn to religion as a form of hope. So there's the positive aspect of it. So that's why people celebrate. They see this maybe as a new thing that can really get people to believe in religion again. I don't know if you read this recent report, but in the United States, 20% of people have no religious affiliation. That's a record number. So religious leaders are freaking out about that, and religious individuals are freaking out about that. So they see this new Pope as an opportunity to convince others to believe again. But the thing is, I don't give a shit about the Pope. What I give a shit about is people basically saying, hey, you know what, we have a serious issue within the Catholic Church. We have issues with pedophilia and sexual abuse, and until we address that, we shouldn't be having these ridiculous discussions about a new Pope and whether or not he's going to change anything.
I totally agree with you. It's and what did you think, I mean, when you were watching the mainstream media coverage of it? Because we talked about it a little bit.
It's ridiculous.
I mean,
it's so ridiculous.
Anderson Cooper was literally breathless with excitement.
No, but it was... But that's what I wonder. Was he genuinely breathless with excitement, or was he putting on a show? Because
I don't know. He seemed kind of genuinely excited.
That's kind of crazy, man. He's gay. Like, he's gay, and this Pope thinks that you don't deserve any rights. He thinks that you're like, a virus or something. And so I hate that Anderson Cooper was excited about it. A real journalist would say, yeah, I guess this is cool. But let's first of all discuss why, the last Pope stepped down. Was it really about his health, or was it because he wanted to avoid controversy that's coming up ahead? Maybe that sounds a little conspiratorial.
I think it totally is why he stepped down.
Yeah, exactly. It's so strange. Like, oh, I'm not feeling good, I'm going to step down. That's never happened in the history of the Catholic Church.
He may have wanted to spend more time with his boyfriend.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. And recently we did this story. It's unbelievable. In Rome, there's this apartment complex where, this one cardinal had purchased like 80 apartments for priests and members of the Catholic Church. And that apartment complex literally has Europe's largest gay sauna. Yeah, a little strange.
Well, if you take away, and I think most of the Catholics, and I've looked at percentages and you read about it, most of the Catholics in this country think that priests should be married. And because if you try to suppress a human function, it's gonna, and I don't mean about gay priests, I mean, because that is certainly, I mean, it's at least some way for them to express their sexuality, but I'm talking about those who become pedophiles, that it's got to come out in some way, and I think that there is something to telling them they have to be celibate that adds to this problem of sexual abuse, because I think it's so completely unhealthy. And I know I don't claim to be a doctor or know anything about that, but I do also think that, yes, I think that Anderson Cooper as well as other journalists were excited about the pageantry, and they spoke about the sexual abuse very much like the church does, as a controversy. There's been controversy in the church. There have been problems in the church. I mean, those aren't problems and controversy. That's crime. So that's a crime, and I think it's odd that, it's disgraceful that wasn't the focus of the coverage. It should have been.
Yeah, that should.
But it would have put a bit damper, I guess, on all the robe stuff and.
No, the pageantry is so stupid. I mean, I was watching CNN as they were reporting it yesterday, with the sound off because I was at work. And, in the newsroom, I didn't want to bother anyone else. But I'm looking at the shots, and there was probably like a 15-minute stretch in a live news report where all you see is the freaking balcony.
I know.
Like, when is he going to come out?
There's light. There's a curtain moving. I saw it.
It was the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, nothing's happening. This would be a great opportunity to talk about how irrelevant it is that they're naming a new pope when they're completely ignoring the huge issue with sexual abuse within the Catholic Church.
Or how about the fact that there isn't any discussion that there are all these guys, these old white guys. I mean, and a couple of real Africans, who are archbishops, but for the most part, it's a bunch of old white men making decisions about the most fundamental part of living: sex, relationships, children, all of which they're supposed to not have any of.
And that's why I'm also amazed that people are so excited about it. Like, you would see people in the crowd crying, and I'm like, you should be crying because they just named another elderly dude who's going to make decisions and judgments about your personal life. I hope that's why you're crying.
I know.
Yeah.
And what is the deal, too, with the non-smiling pope? That was the other thing, too. There's a whole, all of St. Peter's is filled with cheering, crying, clapping crowds, and they're, the most serious. It really was kind of odd. They're, the anti-politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is a political post.
Yeah.
And you kind of look at that and wonder, I mean, the fact that they actually had somebody in Pope John Paul who could connect with an audience, I guess, is the rarity.
Yeah.
It's the exception to the rule.
Yeah, I guess.
It's very odd. No, I mean, I just sort of thought to myself, wow, in front of a crowd like that, you'd think, at least God would give him a little bit of help to have something going on when he said something, and they all have to read from giant prayers because probably none of them can see. I was thinking about myself, we're holding up this book in the print, you could see it out from the audience. Let me just ask you the last thing, because we're kind of running out of time, and it's something that we started to talk about now when you got here, before we were on camera, about the future and what people your age think about when they're looking at the future in this country, and if there is a general hopelessness and a feeling that they're so critical and so, I guess, disgusted by what's going on that they're refusing to participate, or are they participating and hoping for change? And I know you can't speak for everybody, but just what is your sense of, say, people in their early to mid-20s in terms of how they're looking at what's going on in the country right now?
Well, I think that political activism is growing among people in my generation. A lot of people, I'm so fortunate because I have a job that I love. I went to the right school that didn't saddle me with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. But a lot of my peers are dealing with that right now. They're unemployed. They have $150,000 in student loan debt. They can't find jobs. Politicians are bought off by corporations and corporate interests. So I think that's why now you're seeing, this increasing support for a third party, because people are realizing, the whole blue or red party thing isn't working anymore. We need someone different. We need someone out of the box. And, there was a lot of support for Ron Paul. I don't agree with Ron Paul. I think that he has some policy ideas that make sense, but a lot of other policy ideas that don't make sense, including fiscal policy. But I think that we really need to step up and be supportive of third parties. I voted for Jill Stein, and the reason why I did that is because, look, I live in California and I have the luxury of voting for who I really want to, but I understood that swing state voters couldn't do that because that's basically voting for Romney. You know what I mean?
I know, and that's a difficult thing to face with the two-party system. If you really want to vote for change, are you really going to end up with somebody who's even more conservative, more entrenched and so should you make that kind of a statement when you're voting? I actually believe that, I worry about it. So I, will vote for who I want to win because I'm concerned about a Republican, whoever's running. I mean, I kind of just, I'm pretty straight on my parties there anyway, even if I don't like, but I'd be more concerned about a Romney. But I'm curious, do you think that things are bad enough for people in their 20s, and we read about it, and I don't think people are really understanding just how many educated, well-educated, employable people are walking around the streets with nothing to do, or waiting tables, or getting catch as catch can, and the amount of debt that piles up these days for the cost of college is like more than most individuals could ever make, sometimes in their whole lifetime.
I know, it's incredible. I mean, first off, we got to educate young people about how, like, don't chase after the name brand school. It's not worth it.
That's going to take some work. Because it's not the young people who are, I mean, those are parent decisions a lot of the time.
They are parent decisions, so let's educate parents because, you know, look, I went to Cal State Northridge as opposed to USC, and both of them have excellent journalism programs. And you know what? I went to Cal State Northridge because not only did I go there for free, they paid me to go there. And it was great. I got a great quality education. But, you know, people will think, like, oh, USC is a better school. And we got to get rid of that mentality. Education is education. And you need to focus on, you know, the costs and benefits of going to certain schools and making certain decisions. But, you know, going back to your question about young people and political activism, I don't know. I go through phases. And in some phases, I think, oh, my gosh, people are really getting riled up. We might see a revolution. And, you know, I definitely experienced that phase during Occupy Wall Street. And then I go through phases like right now where I feel like, you know what, there are too many distractions and people are too complacent. And even though things are pretty damn bad, they're not bad enough to make people take to the streets and demand change.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that people wouldn't be complacent based on the fact that it's really their own personal interest in being able to get employment. So I think that if that continues, and it looks like it's going to, and that you will see with more activism, because it really, that kind of grows from your own pocketbook.
Definitely.
You know, and I think it's not theoretical, and it's not, I don't like the direction things are going, and it's even not citizens. You know, it's even not like the Wolfpack kind of thing that's going to really energize people. It's going to be the fact that they cannot get a job after going to school, and I see this with people your age, that it's such a strange thing, and to see all these educated people without any prospects.
I know. People have like PhDs and they can't get a job because they're overqualified. I mean, some people have to lie about their education just so they can get some sort of job to make ends meet. It's
and
really
you make
sad.
a really good point about the schools. I mean, and I think for me, I like reflexively don't like what you're saying because I've been it's so ingrained, but I think the economics are making it impossible to continue to choose like a name brand school. And you choose a name brand school because it helps you. If it's going to get you a job. I mean, that was the whole idea.
But also what helps you is networking, your likability. I mean, those things are always underestimated, but I think that they're actually more important than
if you're not likable,
school.
You should pick up name brand school.
Yeah. If you're not likable, definitely pick up a name brand school. But look, as soon as you get an interview and you're a likable person, immediately, I mean, you have this huge advantage, even if you didn't go to a quote-unquote name brand school. So
I think that what the point is that it's saddling yourself with an uphill battle for the rest of it right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you automatically, like you used to. I mean, you used to be able to drop, like you go to an Ivy League school and you drop that, you will go to the top of the line.
Right.
And I don't think that's not happening. So people need to. You make a point that I haven't heard made anywhere else, that they need to reconsider about where they're going to go and kind of change their values up a little bit, because
just a quick cost-benefit analysis. I mean, my best friend majored in social work, and she had the same exact conundrum that I did. Do I go to Cal State Northridge or do I go to USC? But she looked at the average salary of a social worker, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to go to Cal State Northridge. Otherwise, I'm going to be paying student loans for the rest of my life. So, you know, we got to really educate people about that, because I think that that old school frame of mind still exists.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us. We're out of time. I think it's been fascinating. I had a million other questions to ask you, but I think a lot of what we were talking about is really important, and you're actually somebody who knows what you speak, and that everybody, my audience, should be sure to watch Anna on The Young Turks. She's great, and with Jane. We were talking about that. You have a great chemistry together.
Yes, you guys can actually check us out on youtube.com/TYT Live from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay, and And I think our audience, you should be cognizant of the language that everybody's using when you are watching the news, even when you're reading the news, because mainstream media adopts certain terms and you almost become unaware that you're just having a discussion using those terms. And I thought that was a really important thing that we were talking about today. But anyway, gotta go. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Media Mayhem.
Hey everybody, this episode of the DevilReverseSN podcast is brought to you by LegalZoom. LegalZoom is a way to handle all sorts of legal shit. You don't have to actually go to a lawyer to handle it online on your own with no closing. And you can go to LegalZoom.com and you can incorporate or form an LLC for as little as $99. You can form a will for $69. It's really easy to do. And if you panic and you freak out and you're like, I think I'm going to jail, they will connect you with an independent attorney, give you additional guidance. Independent, it's not like LegalZoom is not a law firm, but they provide you self-help services at your specific direction. They can save you a lot of time, a lot of money. They've helped millions of people. In fact, for the last 12 years, 2 million Americans have used LegalZoom, and they've saved a ton of money. It's a sweet service. It's way better and way more stress-free than actually going to work. And if you enter in the code ROGAN in the referral box at checkout, you will save yourself some money doing that. So check it out. LegalZoom.com.
It's an outrage. The council would step in if they get
And we're
attacked
also
and
brought to you by Stamps.com. Stamps.com is an awesome service. If you have shit that you're sending from your house and you have to like weigh it and measure it, especially if you have your own business. If you have your own business, like, it's a huge pain in the ass. You have to send things out, you have to go to the mailbox, you can do all that yourself, and you can actually print out real legit U.S. postage right from your desk. They'll give you a digital scale. If you enter in the code JRE, their special offers. It's a no risk trial, $110 bonus offer, includes a digital scale and up to $55 free postage. So go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in JRE. It's a sweet way to do business. All you have to do is print everything out, put it on the boxes yourself, hand it to the postman.
Settle down, Commander.
Stamps.com, code word JRE. We're also brought to you by Onyx.com.
A mission would end crime was a chance to prove you could get the job done. Instead, Nyla's
Check
ended
out
up
some of the
dead
new
and
things
the
we
beacon was
have.
destroyed.
Zombie kettlebells, Primal Bells is
The sea better the CSEC investigation turned some evidence to support our accusation.
Howler monkeys that are 18 pounds, all the way up to gorillas, which are 72 pounds.
Come with me,
And I always emphasize, I mean, if you're into them, if you think they're cool, and you just want to hang around your house, that's one thing. But if you're actually going to work out with them, if you can, hire a trainer. Just hire just for maybe one time, so you can let you like film them on an iPhone, and just get the technique right. And don't start with really heavy weight. Don't try to go macho. You'll hurt yourself. It's such a stupid way to hurt yourself. You could get a serious, legit workout with like 35 pounds. And I know you're like, Joe, I'm way more manly than that. I know you are. I know you are. I am too. But yet, I can get an awesome workout with 35 pounds. You'd be seriously impressed. And you're way better off going light and doing it regularly. You sell DVDs on them, like Weber, Kettlebell, Cardio, Extreme, workout DVDs 1 and 2. They're fantastic. It's a great thing to do. You just do what he does. Like, just he say, ready, go. And he does it with you. So it's like, it forces you to do some shit that you would ordinarily, you would stop. You would quit. You take a breather. He's not breathing, so you're not going to. You're going to go through it. There's a bunch of them. We have a bunch of packages for sale. There's 2 extreme kettlebell cardio DVDs from Keith Weber. We also have some instructions on how to work out. trying to do is sell all things that work for what you would call functional strength. Like there's a lot of exercises that people do at the gym that they don't really enhance your athleticism or functional strength. Meaning they don't really translate into sports. They just make your biceps bigger. And if that's what I want to do, that's fine. But this can do that as well. And it really translate into actual physical performance. There are tons of supplements, and if you use the code name Rogan, you'll save 10% off any ONMRT. ONMRT.
I am Din Korn, Vola's ambassador.
All right.
Is there something I can do for you, Earth Clan? Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out!
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Anna.
Super excited.
Kasparian.
Yes.
Is that the right way to pronounce it? From the Young Turks. Which is, you guys are like the new media, right? It's like
Yes.
old media and there's new media.
Yeah, establishment media and new media. I'm actually working on a book about it. I mean, I'm not 100% sure that it's going to be published, so I don't want to, give too many details. It's something I'm working on now. But I got to experience that transition from establishment media to new media. And there are really important differences, and just this whole media revolution that's happening. It's really exciting for anyone who's interested in journalism now. I mean, you're part of it with this podcast.
Allegedly.
You are.
Allegedly.
And it's a really great way for people who want to be heard without being censored. I can basically say anything I want on my show without worrying about anyone telling me, hey, you can't say this, you can't say that.
Yeah.
We have corporate sponsors. We got to make sure the advertisers, continue giving us money.
What's fascinating is all you have to do is be entertaining, informative, and that's it. It doesn't have to have CNN on it or Fox on it or any of these other names that we've attributed to meaning what the news is, where the news comes from.
Definitely. I mean, when I first started working at TYT, it was this unknown show. It had been around for a few years, but it was a really big risk for me to work there because I was working at CBS Radio at the time. And CBS Radio had a very clear path for me. You start off as an assistant producer, you will work your way up, and if you're good enough and persistent enough, you'll be an anchor and you'll be fine. You'll be set for life. With TYT, it was just this huge risk because it was unknown. I didn't know if it would survive. At the time, it was on this radio station called Air America. I don't know if you heard of it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
For folks, the TYT stands for the Young Turks.
Yeah, the Young Turks.
In case you're on a plane.
So I just remember being really unhappy at CBS, feeling like, even if I get to the top of the ladder within this company, I'm not going to feel fulfilled doing what they're doing. And the first day I worked at the Young Turks, I heard Cenk Uygur, the main host of the show, go on this rant against the Bush administration and some of the ridiculous, civil liberty violations, civil liberties violations that they were guilty of, not even accused of. And I was like, wow, you do not see this in the media. You don't see this type of honesty. You don't see people go off like that. They're usually very senatorial whenever they're doing any type of commentary. And I was tired of it. I wanted some real news coverage. So that's why I made the decision that I made, and I left, and thank God I made that decision because TYT actually succeeded in big ways.
In what year do you think it was where, it started to shift? Because it seems like, to me, it's maybe 3, 5, whatever years it is, but within the last few years, there's this shift where my friends don't ever talk to me about what they saw on CNN. They don't talk to me what they saw on Fox News. It's always, I read this online. I watched this online. I saw the Young Turks. I watched this show. I watched this guy's podcast. And this guy said, everybody that I talk to is talking about stuff that they're getting when they're talking about real issues. They're talking about stuff they're getting online.
Yeah, well, a lot of things have changed. People don't rush home to watch a newscast anymore. And people also know that there are corporate interests involved in traditional media. You see advertisements for things that you can't even buy on traditional media. Like I see advertisements for this company called Siemens. And I'm like, what are they trying to sell me? And you realize that they're not trying to sell the consumer anything. It's a form of control over the network. BP has a bunch of advertisements on mainstream media. And if they are the people that are paying your bills, you are less likely to be critical of their business practices. So with traditional media, you have that issue, and I think people are now more and more aware of it. And with online media, it's on demand, okay? It's raw. We cuss, we say whatever the hell we want without worrying about censorship. And people like that. There's something really refreshing about it.
Well, they didn't have it before. They didn't think they could. And then they thought if they did, it probably would come in an uneducated form.
Exactly.
Probably be some idiots who are saying stupid things that don't even ring true. But instead, there's intelligent people, and they're like, fuck this. And you're like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
Like, these people are actually articulate. They look like they went to school. Like, this is a new thing.
I actually think that it's a perfect example of the free market deciding, because I don't think that the American people are stupid. I think that they can decide and determine whether or not someone is intelligent enough or credible enough to cover a particular story. So a perfect example of that is I'm not a science reporter. So whenever I attempt to cover science news, the audience tears me apart for it, as they should, because that's not my expertise. My expertise is political commentary, social commentary, and that's usually the stuff that does really well on the Young Turks when I cover it. And so the audience decides, and they will let you know. With mainstream media, it's really difficult for you to voice your opinion if you don't like the coverage, right? You might write an email, but you don't know if anyone's ever going to see it. With our show, we're on YouTube. We get constant feedback, and a lot of times it's not constructive, but sometimes it is constructive.
I like how you said it like that. Not constructive.
Yeah.
That might be the lowest form of human on the planet, is the YouTube commentary.
There are some pretty hideous people on there.
If you looked at it like per numbers, like per capita, it's got like 40% assheads.
Okay, so let me give you an example of something that enraged me the other day. I literally lost it in our studio, and everyone's like, you need to calm down. We covered this story about this guy in Massachusetts who was going around taking upskirt pictures with his cell phone. Okay, so cops finally caught him back in 2010, and now he's going to stand trial for it. And he's actually suing the government because he feels that his First Amendment rights have been violated. And his female lawyer is arguing that since these women are in a public place, they have no reasonable expectation of privacy. Therefore, he should be allowed to take upskirt pictures of them. How absurd is that argument? Anyway, we cover it on the show. We share our, opinion on it. And I would say like about 1/3 of the audience was like, yeah, they're right. Yeah, Anna's a dumb bitch. What if she doesn't know anything? First Amendment rights. And it's like, what am I supposed to do with these types of situations? It's really frustrating.
That's those women who are
That's some gangster
That's
shit
some
right
gangster
there.
shit.
That's like some traitor shit right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'd be very curious to see if she would be okay with this dude, with her own client, taking upskirt pictures with her or of her. And another argument she made was, what? I mean, all these women were wearing underwear. We didn't see their badge, so it's okay.
That's very gangster of her.
Yeah.
Is that just what happens when you get into the business world? You get into the corporate world, and you become a lawyer, and it's about winning and losing, and you
Definitely.
take on the client and just argue it, even though you sold your own vagina down the river.
I know, exactly.
She sold her own vagina.
I don't know what she looks like, but maybe she has nothing to worry about. Maybe no one wants to get an upskirt picture of her, and that's why she has no problem making these arguments in court.
Or maybe she's just dying for somemen to get a picture of hers. She's
Maybe.
just a freak. That could be it too.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a fucking big leap that those women lawyers made. They just decided fucking straight to hell.
I was really surprised by that, but look, when you have there's like financial gain involved, then okay, I guess I can kind of understand where you're coming from. You're a lawyer and you're trying to make some money, I guess. And it's really difficult for lawyers right now to even get cases, to get work. So maybe that plays a role in it. But what really bothered me about it is we have a progressive audience. Like, our audience is pretty liberal. So whenever I see that kind of response to a story like that, I'm always shocked. I'm like, wait, you guys are okay with this?
It's just men. It's just most men who are raised by shitheads. That's a lot of it. It's a big part of it. The real problem is they don't even realize they're being shitheads because their dad was a shithead, their brother was a shithead, they grow up in a community of shitheads. They don't even realize it. It's just behavior.
And there's also a possibility that they're just straight out trolling. Like, they don't even believe what they're saying, but they're doing it to get a response like this. They just won. They just won, and I'm totally aware of that. But I just...
Yeah,
and I remember being in the studio, like, reading the comments, and I was like, what the fuck? Why? What am I doing with my life? Does it matter? And I started feeling really bad about it. But then I was like, you just can't let that stuff get to you. You got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, you can get caught up in an online troll war. You guys actually made fun of me, the Young Turks did, because I got in an online MySpace thing.
I don't even remember
this.
It
was a long time ago, but he was right. I would have made fun of me if I was me. I shouldn't have had this interaction with this kid. This kid kept harassing me over and over again. It was during the MySpace days, and no one knew like how to handle that. Yeah, it was like the new thing that someone could just contact people.
Yep.
And some people would just contact people and go, "Why haven't you not killed yourself?" And you would get an email from someone saying, you're horrible. You should eat glass. Whatever.
Yeah.
You'd get like a lot of those in a day. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is weird. This is a new thing.
Interesting. I get dick pics regularly.
Really? Regularly. You geotag them, and you should re-upload them online. Let everybody know where that sweet dick is hiding.
I've considered that, but a lot of times they'll send me the pictures on Facebook, because I have a fan page on Facebook, and every once in a while I'll check the messages, and they're so stupid, because all of their private information is on there, like where they work, who their girlfriend or their wife is, and part of me wants to like forward it over to their girlfriend or wife, but I'm too nice. Like, I don't want to like ruin their lives over their like perverted behavior.
Well, that's very kind of you to not do that. Didn't a guy recently lose his job because they found out he was a Reddit troll. It was like he would do evil shit on Reddit, and some people said, all right, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then they found who this guy was, and it was a character that he was playing, like to blow off steam. He would be like, allegedly, he would just be like really evil and nasty online.
A small part of me felt kind of bad for him, because he had a family to take care of, and it's gonna like destroy his life. And I get it. Online anonymity allows people to blow off steam in that way. And a lot of people right now, because of the economic crisis, because of all the crap that's going on in the government, all the death and destruction that's around us constantly, a lot of people need some sort of outlet, and so they will use online anonymity to do that, to say hideous things to other people, because that makes them feel good about themselves. And I think that if you're a mature adult, you can just ignore them and step away. I'm not interested in censoring them. I know that YouTube is trying to work with their comments so those negative comments get pushed back to the bottom or whatever, and no one can read them. I just feel like, the internet should be an open forum for the most hateful people if they want to be hateful. And we as adults have to have thicker skin and just walk away and not let it get to us. And it's hard to do. It still gets to me. I mean, that's what I opened the show with.
I like the way YouTube handles it. If too many people say this comment's retarded, then they eliminate it. But you can always see it. If you wanted to show the comment, you can still show the comment.
And they're slowly getting rid of anonymity, where they're attaching the comments to a Google Plus account, so it'll be easier to identify who that person is. I'm not necessarily against that. I just feel like I don't want to move closer towards censorship online. I love that it's an open forum, even though there are negative aspects to it that impact my life.
No, I agree with you. I think it's an important method of criticism that was never available before. We have a very honest view of what you do and what people like, when they like what you do, when they don't. And even if it's really hypercritical, overcritical, if they have a point, that point probably would have never gotten to you during any other era. And if you want to really analyze what you're doing and try to figure out what's the best way to hone this, and they'll give you a lot of input.
They definitely will. I will say that my political views have changed significantly since I started working at TYT, and it's not necessarily because of my colleagues. It has a lot to do with audience feedback. For instance, what I thought about prostitution when I first started was very different from what I think now. I was definitely against legalizing prostitution. I was in favor of tough-on-crime legislation when it came to dealing with that. And then I realized, this is stupid. It's not keeping anyone safe. People are getting hurt as a result of, pushing this ban against prostitution. So I've changed my views on it. I think that we should legalize it and regulate it, because that'll create a safe environment. And that's just one example of many.
Willie D from the Ghetto Boys.
I mean, if you have two consenting adults wanting to do that, exchange money for sex, why the hell not? It's amazing that we have like this huge porn industry in the country. And as long as they do it in front of a camera, it's totally fine. But if they do it behind the scenes, it's illegal.
Well, it's also weird that you can have sex with anybody you want for free. And there's no crime committed at all. But if money's exchanged, somehow you become a criminal. Both parties.
Does anyone really have sex for free, though, when you really think about it?
Man, I just go deep. I didn't want to know this about you. I think, there's people where it evens out, where it's free on both sides.
No, but what I mean by that is usually there's something else involved. I'm not talking about money.
Right.
But there are emotions involved. There's an exchange of emotions. There's an exchange of something. It's
fluids.
not... Oh.
You need to get rid of fluids.
True.
Yeah, well, there's obviously there's massive issues with men versus women as far as how they emotionally connect to sex. And also the need. Like, I don't know what it's like to need sex as a woman. I'm sure it's a very specific itch. Whereas with a male, I'm pretty sure after all my years of observing men and women that it's a different animal. I think horniness for a man is very intoxicating and fogging and confusing, and I don't know if it is for women. I think that's why like a lot of women like a few cocktails first. They can light up the crazy flash without.
I think the cocktails. I think men and women have similar sexual desires. However, women are not allowed to be as open about it because of societal expectations and certain gender roles. If you are a woman who is open about how much you love sex and how often you want to have sex and how badly you need it, you are looked at as a hoe. There's no question about it. People will refer to you as a loose woman, a slutty woman. That's the reason why a lot of women like to have the cocktails before they have sex, because that'll allow them to let loose and do what they really want to do.
Right.
Without feeling guilty about it. At least that's my take. And then also, if you don't have sex, if you decide to save yourself for marriage, or you save yourself for someone that you genuinely love or whatever, then you're considered a prude. There's really no winning.
Yeah, women have a total short end of the stick, society-wise, when it comes to sex, without a doubt. But I think that if you wanted to say, like, who's going to think that you're a hoe for enjoying sex? Well, it's definitely going to be women. There's going to be a lot of women that think you're a hoe.
Yep.
And it's definitely going to be guys who you won't have sex with.
Right.
So what's left? You're only left with, like, two groups of guys. There's guys that would have zero problem with it at all, and then there's guys that would only have a problem with it if you weren't attracted to it. That's, and most likely, it weeds out assholes. So if you were a chick and you were just like, listen, I'm a freak, I like to get fucked all day long, that's what I'm into, you'll find exactly the right people you need in your life.
That's an interesting perspective. I think
girls won't want to have anything to do with you.
I know, but you'll also attract a lot of really scary, pervy people.
Oh, it's no doubt. Instantly.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Because I think for a lot of people, especially in the culture we're living right now, if you're that open about your sexual desires, people will see that as a green light to do things that might even be considered illegal. Whether it's harassment or sexual assault or something.
That's true. And also, I mean, this is like probably bullshit, but I would imagine that if you're the type of person that starts getting into like threesomes and tying each other up, you start getting like really freaky, it's way easy to go too far with that. It's way, like, if you hear about someone like, I'm just into sex all day long, I just love sex, is it just sex, or how long does it take before a ball gag comes out, Is it a month into your relationship, like a year later, what are you going to be into a year from now?
Yeah.
Just duct tape. Dude, I like ripping it off of her. There's people that get in, like, how does that happen? They go down one of those pervy roads.
Yeah, now you just got deep.
Yeah. You go down pervy road, and you just can't get satisfied. It's like, people have this weird thing of constantly wanting progress. If they have a house that's 4,000 square feet, they want a house that's 5,000 square feet. If they make $500,000 a year, they want to make $1 million a year. They always want to take things to the next level, and that includes like freaky shit.
Well, that's the American way. You always want more. You want the bigger TV, and even I'm definitely guilty of that. I live in a really modest apartment that I love, but the other day I was like, I could probably go for a bigger apartment. But why? I live by myself. My apartment's fine. I don't need a bigger one, right? When it comes to, physical stuff, I think you kind of just get desensitized by it. There have been many studies about what porn does to the brain, and you start off by watching something that might be considered softcore, and that's enough to, do the job. And then all of a sudden you're watching more and more hardcore stuff, and you just become desensitized to it. And for a lot of teenage boys that grow up on that kind of stuff, that's what they expect from women, or girls once they start having sex. It's really serious stuff.
And it's changing people's sexuality without a doubt. The bush is gone. The bush died because of porn.
I heard that you're upset about that.
I'm terrified. They let porn win. It just doesn't make sense. It's like everybody let porn win. Before, nobody had a problem until like 1990.
Yeah.
Nobody had a problem with a hairy vagina. It was just what it was. I mean, people trimmed around them, but generally there was a lot going on down there. Especially if you dated an Italian girl or what have you. But now it's like their victory is just universal. It's like the victory over that aesthetic, the victory over the shaved, waxed genitals.
Well, those women are supposed to symbolize male desire. They're supposed to symbolize what a man wants, and then that has an influence on regular women, and they think, oh, am I supposed to look that way? Am I supposed to groom that way? There have been stories of women that injure themselves because they'll go get bleached in areas that they shouldn't be getting bleached. And it's just amazing to me that it's that influential. I know.
It's very strange, but it's a silent influence.
It is.
It's very odd. And I was, when the markets were crashing and government bailouts were going down, I was fascinated. I was like, how come nobody ever wanted to bail out the porn industry? Like, why would they pretend that the porn industry isn't this giant monster business that all of a sudden just evaporated? Like half of it, like 3/4 of it, I don't know what the number of it, that just disappeared.
Yeah, because of the internet.
Right. So, like, who's pretending that this isn't a real business? Like, everyone's like, well, I guess they'll just have to exist on their own. Meanwhile, you're watching it. Like, that person's a fan of it. He probably has, like, a bunch of different videos that he has, like, bookmarked on his laptop or something.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, which politician would come out and say, we need to bail out the porn industry? That would be political suicide. We live in this puritanical society. I mean, that would be insane.
Well, there's also the same sort of feeling that happened with the music business. Is that, like, the music business went out as well with the downloads of MP3s and file sharing. They lost a giant piece of revenue. It just evaporated. And no one really was considering bailing them out either. It was like, you kind of should have figured this out, dummies.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that, but at the same time, everything always goes back to who is funding our politicians. Wall Street, these big bankers, these are the people that fund the campaigns for our politicians, which is why they just willy-nilly went for the bailout. And by the way, after the bailout happened, we did nothing to break up these too-big-to-fail banks. They still exist, and they're still doing the same type of bullshit that'll lead to another economic collapse. I mean, the regulation that we passed was nothing. So it's just, it always goes back to money in politics, which, we talk about on the show all the time. If someone is funding you, whether it's the media or whether you're a politician, you're not going to go against them. You're always going to bail them out.
Yeah, Terrence McKenna described it as he described it as a special interest oligarchy, disguising itself as a democracy.
Oh yeah, we have legalized bribery in this country.
It's amazing, though, isn't it? I mean, when you really stop and think it's gotten to the point that it is today, where essentially it's open, it's pretty obvious, they control virtually every single aspect of our economy, our society. It's all just money-generating codes, these big, giant spaceships filled with assholes. They're just sucking money out of whatever. Whether it's through oil or natural gas or whatever they're doing.
Why do oil subsidies exist? Like,
that's a good question.
Why don't people ask the government that? Like, why the hell are we giving these massive, profitable oil companies subsidies? It's insane. At the same time, we're cutting funding for education. We're privatizing public schools, which is a complete and utter disaster.
Subsidies sounds like they should get it. It's like, well, there's oil subsidies. Okay, oil subsidies. It's not like oil donation or oil payola. If they call it oil payola, what is that?
Yeah.
Why do they get involved? Don't they have a lot of money?
Yeah.
What's happening here?
Most profitable industry in the United States, in the world, So it's frustrating stuff. But fortunately, there are ways around it. Citizens United was a terrible Supreme Court ruling. Effectively allows corporations to act as people and make these unlimited campaign donations to politicians. So one way that you can get around that is by creating a constitutional amendment, which we're trying to do at the Young Turks. There's a political action committee that we formed called Wolfpack. Your audience can learn more about it at wolf-pack.com. And basically, it would have state leaders propose a resolution, and the resolution would create a constitutional convention where you can make an amendment to the Constitution that would get money out of politics. And that would fix so many problems, because then our broken democracy would change into a system that it was intended to be, where our elected politicians are supposed to represent us, the people, instead of corporations.
Well, when you back something in the corner and shine a light on it, you really get to know its true nature.
Yeah.
And if that ever does come to play, it would be a very fascinating moment to see how the system that's in place today would deal with the idea of taking money out of politics, and what kind of a scramble would take place.
Yeah.
It would be quite weird to see.
It would be, I'm not going to lie, it's definitely going to be difficult to do. Cenk Uygur is really optimistic about it. I'm not as optimistic as he is. But I think that if the American people become a little more politically active and they sign the petitions necessary and they hold their state representatives accountable, I think that this could happen. It just takes a little bit of political activism. And unfortunately, there's this huge level of apathy right now, which I don't understand, because the political climate is leading to, this economic meltdown and all of the problems that people are experiencing right now, income inequality, wealth inequality. It's scary stuff. I mean, we lie to ourselves when we say that we live in the best country in the world. We have legalized bribery. We need to fix it. We need to fix our democratic process.
When you look at the future of this country, the way it's running, the way it is currently operated, how long can that? It seems like it's falling apart at the wheels. It seems like it's like this crazy thing that's spinning and shaking and sucking money out and freaking out. How long can this thing operate the way it is right now?
I'm not sure. I mean, that's a really good question, but people are really starting to feel, the downfall of how our system is working. Like, just to give you an example, this number blows me. The top 10% in this country own 75% of the country. That is bananas.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of ballers.
And 10% ballers, everyone else is struggling. They're struggling. Top 1% owns 1/3 of the wealth of the country. And so people are struggling to make ends meet. And the reason why that's happening is because we're seeing these huge tax cuts for the most wealthiest people. Why is it that we're supposed to have the highest corporate tax rate, but because of corporate loopholes, we actually have the lowest corporate tax rate? I mean, we got to get rid of those loopholes. And then you have the Republicans saying, yeah, you know what, we should raise taxes. One way we can do that is by getting rid of deductions. Which deduction do they want to go after? Homeowners. They want to go after people who get that interest rate deduction in their taxes. And that, of course, impacts the middle class. So there's just a lot of frustrating stuff going on.
It seems like there's too much stuff going on for everybody to pay attention to everything. And that's one of the reasons where the apathy comes in. It's just too freaky. There's too much happening. It's too nutty. It's not going to get fixed. Shit! Close the shade. I'm going to take a nap.
I'm going to watch the Kardashians or play video games or do whatever I need to do to distract myself. And I don't blame people for doing that. A lot of these issues are really complicated and complex. You have to sit down and do so much research. We have this mainstream media that's also broken. They're not reporting the real news. You have to really rely on independent media to get real facts. And so I don't blame people for wanting to be distracted, but at the same time, if we allow things to continue the way they are, we're going to have the wealthiest people living in their castles with moats around them, while we're going to struggle to find private security because everything that is publicly funded is going to be defunded, including our education. We're seeing that happen now.
Nobody ever wants to think that the operating system that runs our society. Nobody ever wants to think that that's happened in places like Camden, New Jersey.
Yep, perfect example.
They didn't have cops.
It's insane. And of course, I mean, it's common sense.
Yeah.
Their crime rate shot up as a result of that.
Of course, it was a free ride.
Yep.
I mean, that's if you were like a really bad person, that's like the best place to live in the country. You're like, look, there's no cops, and then you don't even have them.
Yeah.
that's a small little crumbling in the foundation of our society. Just a little one, and maybe they fix it for now, but eventually that could happen. There was an Anthony Bourdain special I was watching today. He's great. His new show, the CNN show. He was in Detroit, and he was just going over these factories where they used to make these amazing cars, and they're just completely falling apart. And it's freaky. It's freaky to see how this city of 2 million plus people now is like less than 700,000. You can buy a house for like $500, and he was like touring around the city and checking it out. And I was like, if that can happen that quickly, that's just one city. That can happen other places too. Like, this whole thing is like barely hanging together with chewing gum.
And I think the most frustrating part about that is, we have politicians that will pass policies that lead to the collapse of certain cities. California is in a lot of trouble right now because of a proposition we passed in 1978 called Proposition 13. It capped property taxes at 1.2%. And as a result, we started defunding our education, which is why the LAUSD went from being one of the best school districts in the country to being one of the worst school districts in the country. And we just lost out on a ton of revenue as a result of our very low property taxes. And so they'll pass policies like that. In the case of California, of course, Californians voted for it, which was disastrous. But then at the same time, they'll cut government programs that'll help the poorest people, whether it's the SNAP program or the food stamp program or, welfare programs that help needy kids. And it's like, look, if you don't want to spend this much money on governmental programs or social programs, then stop passing policies, tax cuts that make it really, really difficult for people to make ends meet.
Well, I think if it wasn't for shows like yours, if it wasn't for that, this information wouldn't be going out. And if the information wasn't going out, people wouldn't realize what a clusterfuck it really is. They would tune into the nightly news and get this sense that everything's going to be okay, which is basically what America did until the internet.
Yeah.
It seems like within the 10, 15 plus years of the active internet, the whole world is just stopped and like, wait, what the fuck are we doing? Like, everyone's shaking their head, looking left and right. Confusion, turmoil, and questioning on a level that I don't think we've seen before. And this weird new thing where anybody can just stick a camera and attach USB it to a laptop and boom, you're online.
I know.
Making YouTube videos or making MP3s. It's incredible. It's a weird time.
It gets me really excited, like just thinking about it, because the possibilities are endless. And, I mean, we had the Young Turks, we had no marketing budget, we had no publicity, we had nothing. All we did was create a business model that worked. Jank does the really serious political reporting, which I'm jealous of. That's what I want to do. And then I come in and I do the stuff that goes viral online.
Why would you be jealous of paying attention to this system?
I love politics. And don't get me wrong.
Why don't you marry it?
Maybe I will. No, I love... I mean, I studied political science for my master's, and it's just always been a passion of mine since I was in high school. So even though things are really bad right now, I have this passion to try to make a difference. And so I see Jake making a difference, and I'm really proud of him. And he's someone that's been my mentor, someone that I look up to. And, I want to be able to analyze politics and politics. At the same time, I was brought in for something completely different. I was brought in to make the company money, and that's basically what I do. The stories that I cover in my hour of the show are sometimes very important social stories, whether it's gay rights, women's rights, whatever, men's rights when it comes to how they get screwed over, when it comes to children, marriage, and basically the law. Men are basically screwed over when it comes to sexual harassment and stuff. Like, it's amazing. But that's a side note. But then, I'll do the stories that are really stupid, but people will love them. Like, we'll do a Miley Cyrus story, and it'll get, millions of views, and we'll make a ton of money off that video, but there's no value to that story. So I always feel guilty doing it. So I'll have days where I'm just like, I'm a big failure. Like, this is what I do with my life, and I feel guilty about it.
I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, following politics is like following some fucking fake history show. It's fake.
It's discouraging. There's no question.
I mean, it's like I always had this conversation with Jamie Crystal. they were talking about this. You ever think that by following this fake horse and pony show that you're like lending credence to it because you're an intelligent person and you're pretending this isn't all just assholes who are getting bribed, because that's what it really is. It's really just a bunch of assholes that are getting bribed, and they're the ones, and their cronyism and all this weird shit going on, laws and things they can and can't get away with, and what they can and can't be charged with.
Well, I mean, look, there's a huge difference between political reporters in the mainstream that just report on it, but they don't really give a shit about making a difference. And then there's a huge difference between people like Jamie and Allison on Citizen Radio, or the Young Turks, or any other, what is it called? Oh, the name is
Alex Jones?
No, not Alex Jones.
Infowars.com.
Alex Jones.
You guys have been stealing our thunder. We're coming at you with YouTube views. Infowars.com, the #1 media source in the nation. Young Turks tries to pretend they have similar ratings.
So you've seen that. That's awesome.
Alex is a friend of mine.
Is he?
Yeah, he's crazy.
He's crazy. Look, I have no problem with him.
He's a great guy, though. I love him. You met him, he's a sweetheart.
Cenk did meet him, and he ended up liking it. So I believe it. But his response video to us was hilarious on so many different levels. Like, put a shirt on, dude. Put a fucking shirt on. Like, if you're trying to make a decent point and you don't want to seem like you're loony, put a fucking shirt on.
But don't.
If you're Alex Jones, you don't need a fucking shirt.
By the way, he's probably naked, too.
Ah, don't tell me that.
Most likely his website.
No one's gonna care.
I'm #1.
Oh, I love this video.
Serious global leader. Rolling Stone, New York Magazine, all the done actuaries. I'm #1.
He's #1, period.
Yeah.
By the way, here's one thing he's missing. It's a shirt.
He's crazy. I've known Alex for a long time. I did a DVD in 1999, and he and I put on Bush masks. I was Bush Jr. and he was Bush Sr. And we put on these masks. We ran around the Austin State Capitol, like the front yard, and filmed it when Bush got elected. The title of the DVD was Belly of the Beast, so it was right when Bush was getting elected. So it was awesome. And him and me are in this video, and he's singing a song. He sings this like crazy New World Order song that he wrote. Oh, that's not us. That's the other one. We were actually hearing this. But he's a really good guy.
I don't deny that. I'm sure he is a good guy. Tell me the truth. Is he like playing a role when he's on camera? Because I don't believe that he's really that great. Like, some of the stuff he says, I just don't believe he believes.
I do not know. I would not pretend to know. I think he's a very complex man. I think there's a lot going on beneath the surface. There's a lot of layers to that cake. And I think that a lot of people look at him and think he's a screaming maniac, but he was right about a lot of shit a long time ago. He was saying that the NSA is going to be reading all your emails and looking through. He said that they're going to make deals with major data networks, with AT&T and Google. He was saying this a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I specifically remember having conversations with a friend and him, and my friend was like, "That is so crazy. Why would they do that? They're not going to do that. Do you really think that the law would ever let them do that?"
The law! They own the law!
Yes, I'm crazy. We'll go Alex Jones again.
But here's the thing. That strategy or that delivery is effective because there have been people who've been reporting about civil liberties violations for a while, and they get no attention. So sometimes the squeaky wheel will get the attention, and if that's what he needs to do to get coverage of those important news stories, it's totally fine. The thing is, there are little sprinkles of truth to some of the stuff that he reports, and then some of the stuff that he reports is just crazy and it's made up. So it's like I don't know where to fall with that guy, because I want to support him with some stories, but then other stories I'm like, dude, you need to tone it down.
Well, I don't know what the process is for acquiring information, vetting it out, and then publishing it and yelling at the YouTube channel. I don't know what the process is, but I know that he's right about a lot of things, and I know that he's passionate about a lot of things. But I think that he probably needs a better filter.
Yeah.
I think there's a few rants he'll go on where you're like, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. What the fuck are they doing?
Yeah.
Chemtrails! Do you understand how many planes are in the sky every night spraying chemtrails, blocking out the sun? I can't even fucking grow tomatoes here in Austin, Texas!
No. Your impression of him is amazing.
I've been hanging out with him fucking more than a decade.
That's uncanny. That's insane.
But he'll go off about something, and then you'll go, but did you know that this and that, you know, like you'll have counters to those, but those don't get in there.
Yeah.
Those don't get in there. They get New World ordered out, they get Black Holocoptered out, they just ricochet off. He wants to see a conspiracy in every fucking thing that's ever existed ever. If you come up to him about whatever it is, name it, JFK, Iran-Contra, Whitewater, death of Vince Foster, there's a million stories! They never end. He'll just fucking come at you. But he's been right about a lot of stuff that's really freaky.
Yeah.
One thing that he reported on that very few people caught was the use of paid police officers to pretend to be people that are in a crowd protesting, and then agent provocateurs, and they would start smashing things. He covered this in Seattle when the World Trade Organization was making their, I believe it was the 90s, when there was these massive protests, and the protests went violent. Well, he has all these photos of like their bottom of their boots, military issue Vibrams. And he like points all this like, these are police officers. They're wearing masks, no one else is, and they're the only ones doing any damage. They're smashing things, and they're doing it so then the police can come in and start arresting peaceful people, which they normally couldn't do. And I thought that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
The crazy thing is, you know, when it came to the Occupy protesters, they weren't even agent provocateurs. They were just cops, like, just breaking shit and starting the violence. And, you know, they got a little bit of criticism for it, but the media would pick up the story and make it seem as though the Occupy protesters were the violent ones. They would do everything necessary to discredit them, which made me so angry because finally in this country there was a little bit of political activism. They changed the conversation because we were talking about bullshit until Occupy came along and talked about wealth inequality. And then, you know, you have the mainstream that totally discredited them, and then they just kind of fizzled out. And I had so much hope for that movement.
You know what fucked that movement?
Them not being organized.
Soap.
What?
They didn't get enough soap.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
There's too many stinky motherfuckers out there in drum circles. That was a big part of it.
I covered Occupy LA and Occupy Oakland. Occupy Oakland was a scary situation to cover because they were a lot more militant there. I mean, their intentions were in the right place, but their delivery was a little scary, so I just kind of felt
like shit could hit the fan.
Yeah, like one wrong move and violence could break out. But it was because they were overly protective. They knew what was happening to other protesters. You know, look at what happened at UC Davis, I think. You know, with that cop spraying that pepper spray on those students that are just sitting there. So I think that they were just overly protective, as they should have been, because of the treatment that all these protesters were dealing with.
And the treatment throughout history. I mean, all they have to do is go back to look at what was going on during the Vietnam War. Look at what happened at Kent State when they started shooting. The National Guard is shooting at students that were protesting. I mean, that's not that long ago. People are aware of that kind of stuff. But when I saw this Alex Jones thing, I really thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, there's no way that could ever be possible. There's no way. And then he presents it like very clearly, very cleanly, over and over again, all the different news stories that pointed to different various incidents that took place, including them sequestered. They got all of the agent provocateurs in a house. The cops negotiated with them and then let them go. I mean, the whole thing was like so cut and dry and clear.
When you have evidence backing up your conspiracy, then of course, I mean, you have strong evidence and I'll believe it. But it's one thing to have the evidence, it's another thing to report that something
there is a way to stop Saren
and that's not having the evidence.
Well, that's why I said I think he needs it.
No. It's too soon.
I think he's got a lot of
Humanity is not ready for the responsibilities that come with joining the
Dude,
Spectres.
to go to war.
I faced
He'll fucking roll his sleeves
Saren.
up and duke it out in the street with somebody. He's fucking crazy.
I'm aware. Yeah.
He's a madman, but he's also a good guy. Like, I just think that he needs a filter. You know? But he's right more than he's wrong. I'll tell you that, especially now. This is Alex and me.
Commander Shepard, step forward.
Yep. Yeah.
That's the real issue.
Yeah. I mean, Mother Nature is the issue. Elijah.
decision of the Council that you be granted all the powers and privileges of the Special Tactics and Reconnaissance Branch of the Citadel.
Spectres are not trained, but chosen. Individuals forged in the fire of service and battle. Those whose actions elevate them above the rank and file.
Spectres are an ideal, a symbol, the embodiment of courage, determination, and self-reliance. They are the right hand of the Council, instruments of our will.
Spectres bear a great burden. They are protectors of galactic peace, both our first and last line of defense. The safety of the galaxy is theirs to uphold.
You are the first human Spectre, Commander. This is a great accomplishment for you and your entire species. I'm honored, Counselor.
We're sending you into the Traverse after Saren. He's a fugitive from justice, so you are authorized to use any means necessary to apprehend or eliminate him.
I'll find him. This meeting of the Council is adjourned.
Starting to believe is that human beings, like the reason why we like to think of ourselves as being something that we're much more in control of than just the woes of nature.
And it's like, it goes against everything I believe. I hate that kind of materialism, and he's a victim here, so I'm not trying to criticize him. It's more of a societal thing where we all want to show off our new shiny handbag. And it's fucking bullshit. I hate when women fall for that crap. But at the same time, like, this obsession with materialism makes me sick to my stomach. It's distracting, and it makes people feel that if they can't afford certain things, then they're not good enough, that they're not worthy.
place seems strange.
What do you want? Oh, Commander. Is there something I can do for you?
Calm down, Private. This isn't an inspection.
Right, sorry. What can I do for you, Commander?
Just saying hi. Enjoy yourself, Private.
Commander.
I don't have time to talk now. I'm very busy.
Hello, Commander. Can I get you something?
Goodbye.
So long, Commander. Have a pleasant day.
Hello, Commander. Has any progress been made with Mr. Bosker? Will he return my wife's body?
They're running medical studies on Neurali. That's why they won't release the body.
Tests? They're holding my wife's body for tests? My wife served the Alliance faithfully. She gave her life for humanity. And this is how they repay her.
It is unacceptable. I'll let you know what I can do.
Thank you. Please let me know what can be done.
So much empty space. 1,000 of my people could live here and hardly even see each other.